Imagine it's Friday. Your paycheck just hit. You open your banking app, and for a few minutes you feel okay. Then you start doing the math in your head. Rent or mortgage, electric, Wi-Fi, groceries, gas, and the car that sounds like it's about to ask for $1,000 you don't have. And the whole time, one thought is sitting in the back of your mind. This is all riding on one paycheck. If anything goes wrong, it's you versus the entire spreadsheet. If that's you, you're exactly who I'm talking to today. Maybe you're a single parent. Maybe you're the only earner in a couple. Maybe it's just you, but the bills feel like they belong to a family of four. Either way, you're running a single-income household in America, and it's a different game than having two paychecks smoothing things out. I want to show you how to manage money in that situation so your whole life isn't one bad week away from collapsing. Hey, I'm Dylan from Dylan Investments. Money Talks, I translate it for you. By the end of this video, I want you to walk away with something very specific, a way to think about your one paycheck so it can cover today, protect you from chaos, and still slowly build a future. We're going to break down why single-income money feels so fragile, how the system quietly works against you, and what I'd actually do if I were running my entire life off one paycheck. Let's start with the part nobody really says out loud. When you live on one paycheck, your margin for error is thinner. If a two-income household is like a table with two legs, you're running a table with one leg. It can still hold a lot of weight, but any wobble feels scarier. A missed shift, a slow month, a surprise medical bill, even a mistake like forgetting about an automatic payment hits twice as hard because there's no backup paycheck quietly smoothing it out. Here's where this gets interesting. A lot of people think their problem is just not enough income. Sometimes that's true, but very often the deeper issue is that the one income you do have is completely unorganized. Money comes in, and instead of having jobs, those dollars just run around your life like kids in a grocery store, grabbing whatever looks good. The less organized your paycheck is, the more fragile your life feels, no matter what your actual income number is. So let's give your dollars jobs. Not a complicated spreadsheet, not some perfect system you'll abandon in 2 weeks. Just a mental way to see your money differently. When you get paid, every dollar has 3 possible jobs. Keep the household standing, handle the stuff that always surprises you but shouldn't, and build a tiny bit of distance between you and the next emergency. That's it. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember those 3 jobs. To make this less abstract, imagine my friend Mike. He's a single dad, one paycheck, works full-time, doesn't earn a fortune but isn't at minimum wage either. For years, every month felt like a crisis. He thought rent was the problem, or that groceries were too expensive. One day, he actually printed 2 months of bank statements and used 3 different highlighters. One color for must-have stuff like rent and utilities, one for didn't see that coming things like school pictures and car repairs, and one for, honestly, I kind of forgot I spend on this. By the time he finished, he realized the real villain wasn't just prices, it was chaos. The money was there, it just had no system. Now here's the twist. When you're on one income, you can't afford to live in reaction mode. The first thing I'd do if I were you is turn every paycheck into a mini money meeting. Even if it's just you sitting at the kitchen table with a notepad and your banking app. You don't need a finance degree. You just need to answer 3 questions every time you get paid. What has to be covered before I get paid again? What big or weird thing is coming up soon that I usually pretend doesn't exist until it's an emergency? And how much can I afford to move into a tiny safety cushion without setting myself on fire this week? Let's look at that second question because this is where single-income households often get crushed. Those irregular bills. The car registration, kids' back-to-school stuff, birthday gifts, oil changes, dentist visits. They feel random, but they're not. They're just not monthly. On 2 incomes, those hits are annoying. On one income, they can wipe out a whole paycheck or push you deeper into credit card debt. The trick is to stop treating them as surprises. If your car insurance hits every 6 months, divide it by 6 and pretend it's a monthly bill. If you know your kids destroy shoes twice a year, ballpark that cost and break it into monthly chunks. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to stop acting shocked by predictable chaos. You might be thinking, okay, that all sounds nice, but my paycheck is already gone before it lands. Where am I supposed to find money for all these future me categories? Fair question. This is where we have to talk about the invisible leaks that quietly drain single-income households. Most people picture a big villain like rent, but often it's death by 1,000 cuts. Subscriptions you forgot about. Delivery fees because you're exhausted. Quick trips to Target that were supposed to be for detergent and turned into a cart somehow. None of these feel huge in the moment, but over a month, they absolutely steal the money your future self needs. I know a guy named Jason who swore there was no room in his budget. He was the only earner for his wife and new baby. Earning okay money, but always tense. We went line by line through his last month. No judgment, just curiosity. He had 3 streaming services, a gym membership he hadn't used in months, food delivery 4 times a week, and random app charges that he literally couldn't remember signing up for. When he added them up, those tiny choices equaled about a car payment. I'm not saying you never treat yourself. I'm saying those dollars are holding your life together, and they deserve better jobs than make Netflix richer. Here's where things quietly go wrong for single-income households. The world is set up to make spending effortless and saving annoying. Everything is on autopay coming out of one checking account. There's no separation between this keeps the lights on, and this was me impulsively tapping my phone at 11 p.m. If I were running your money on one paycheck, I try to create at least 2 or 3 separate buckets, even if they're just mental or written on paper. One for fixed must-pay bills, one for everyday spending like groceries and gas, and one for those irregular future hits we just talked about. Whether you use separate bank accounts, envelopes, or just careful tracking is less important than the separation itself. And here's the key. Your everyday spending has to adjust, not your rent, not your electric bill. A lot of people try to squeeze their non-negotiable bills after they already spent freely on daily stuff. I'd flip that. As soon as your paycheck lands, imagine yourself lining up your fixed bills first and reserving for upcoming must-pay items second. Whatever is left is your real money for groceries, gas, and small treats, not the other way around. It's not fun to see that number shrink, but it's way less painful than pretending it's big and then panicking when autopays hit. Remember that moment when you opened your bank app and felt sick? This is the exact mechanism behind that feeling. Your brain was operating off a fake number. It saw the total in your account as available, when in reality a big chunk of that money already belonged to your landlord, your car lender, your phone company, or your past decisions on a credit card. When you start mentally taking that money out the second you get paid, you're not actually poorer, you're just being honest earlier. The shock moves from, oh no, I'm broke again, to, okay, here's what I genuinely have to work with this week. That shift alone can lower your stress more than any budgeting app. Now let's talk about debt, because this is the trap a lot of single-income households fall into. The credit card becomes the unofficial second income. You pay for groceries, gas, gifts, or emergencies with it, telling yourself you'll catch up later. The problem is, with one paycheck, later barely exists. Interest quietly eats your future raises before you even get them. I'm not going to hit you with complicated payoff strategies. I just want to give you one simple rule. Try your absolute best to stop using the card for new normal expenses. Treat it as a fire alarm, not a light switch. If you're still swiping for routine stuff like groceries every week, the hole gets deeper, even if you're making payments. Here's where it gets weird, in a good way. Even in a tight single-income situation, if you can freeze new debt and consistently throw any little extra at the balance, you'll eventually feel something shift. Maybe that's tax refund money. Maybe it's a small raise. Maybe it's the cash you freed up from canceling subscriptions and cutting one takeout night. Those numbers might feel small, but when you focus them on one balance at a time, you start breaking chains instead of adding new ones. It's slow, it's not glamorous, but it's how regular people quietly dig out. We also need to talk about protection, not just progress. If you're the only income, your job is basically your life support system. I don't say that to scare you. I say it so you treat it with the respect it deserves. In a perfect world, you'd have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved. In reality, that might sound borderline impossible right now. So let's shrink the target. If you've got 0 saved, your first goal is not some big emergency fund. It's one paycheck's worth of expenses sitting somewhere you do not casually touch. When you hit that, aim for 1 month. Then 2. Tiny milestones matter way more than perfect theory here. To make this practical, imagine losing your job tomorrow. I know that's not fun, but run the scenario. How many days before things start falling apart? What bills hit first? Who would you call? What could you trim instantly? Doing that thought experiment now lets you build a plan while you're calm instead of improvising in panic. I know a guy who went through a layoff while being the only earner. The reason he didn't completely fall apart wasn't because he had some huge cushion. He had maybe a month saved. The real advantage was that he already knew. If this happens, I pause these subscriptions, I switch my phone plan, I call my landlord, and I have a list of 3 places I'll apply to immediately. Single-income households don't just need money plans. They need crisis scripts written in advance. Now, let's go one level deeper into something that doesn't get talked about enough: the emotional side of being the single earner. There is a quiet pressure you carry that other people might not see. If you're supporting a partner or kids, every dollar feels heavier. If it's just you, it's easy to beat yourself up for not being further ahead by now. That pressure can actually cause worse money decisions. You buy things to feel normal, to show your kids they're not missing out, to reward yourself for working so hard. None of that makes you a bad person. It makes you human. The trick is to build a plan that includes some small joy on purpose, instead of trying to sneak it in and then feeling guilty about it. So what does that look like in real life? If I were running your money, I'd still carve out a tiny fun category in that everyday spending bucket. It might be $20, it might be 50. It won't solve everything, and it won't buy every treat, but it tells your brain, we're not in prison. We're in training. That mindset difference matters. You're not punishing yourself for being on one income. You're tightening things now so you can build options later. Without a little bit of controlled fun money, most budgets explode on the weekend anyway. If you're sharing a household and you're the only earner, communication is part of money management. I know, nobody loves that word. But if one person is bringing in the income and another person is home with kids or taking care of other responsibilities, unspoken expectations destroy budgets. If I were you, I'd have one honest conversation that sounds something like, here's exactly what comes in. Here's what absolutely has to go out. Here's what's left for groceries, gas, and everything else. Here's what I'm scared about. What are you scared about? That conversation won't magically create more money, but it will turn you into a team against the problem instead of 2 people silently stressed at each other. Let's circle back to the original pain point. That sick feeling when you open your bank app after getting paid and realize the money is already gone. The goal of everything I've talked about is not to turn you into some perfect budgeting robot. The goal is to move you from, I have no idea what's happening, and I'm always scared, to, it's still tight, but I know what's going on, and I can see a path. That emotional shift often happens before the numbers look dramatically different. And once you feel that, you're way more likely to stick with the plan long enough for it to work. Here's the part most people never see. Single-income households that win financially usually don't do it because they suddenly double their income or discover some magical side hustle. That can help, sure, but the real change is boring and consistent. They stop pretending irregular bills are surprises. They give every paycheck a plan before the world gives it one. They choose a few leaks to plug instead of trying to change everything overnight. They build a tiny buffer, then protect it like crazy. It doesn't look inspiring on Instagram, but it looks amazing in real life when a car repair hits. And, for the first time in years, you don't have to panic. If this video made things click for you, save it. Not because I need the ego boost, but because the next time you get paid, your brain will go on autopilot and do what it always does. Having this on hand as a paycheck meeting reminder can help you slowly rewire how you handle that money. And if you want to go deeper, the next thing you'll want to understand is how to build a simple budget that actually works in the real world, not just on paper. That's exactly what I break down in another video, and it pairs perfectly with what we've just talked through here. You might still be on one paycheck next month. That may not change quickly, but what can change starting today is the story that Paycheck is living in. It can go from barely keeping us alive to quietly building us options. It won't happen in a week. It might not even feel dramatic. But every time you give those dollars better jobs, every time you choose clarity over chaos, you're making that single income stronger than it looks on paper. That's how everyday people in single-income households slowly move from survival mode toward actual stability. I'm Dylan from Dylan Investments. Money talks, and I'll keep translating it for you. Have a good one, my friend.